I think I'm live, everybody. Let's try this again. Does it look like I'm good here? Having a difficult time syncing up today with this. First time I did it just wasn't right. Now it's good. Looks like it's okay. Everything looks fine. All right. So I'm finally here. It took me 3 times. The Big R Rogers drum. This is a snare drum that I've been wanting to do. I have a World Max. I have a Ludwig Acrolite. I have a Ludwig Vistalite. My World Max is the second deepest drum I have. I think it's 6.5 by 14. Steel one, basically a Ludwig. And then Ludwig Acrolite, 5.5 by 14. Vistalite, 5.5 by 14. A Slingerland student model, vintage, with the awesome rims that wrap around, in the 70s, I guess. 5.5 by 15, 5.5 by 14. Anything else here? No, that's it. And this one. So this is like completes the circle for me. I'm just like blown away. I took this to the studio, and it's just it's so powerful. Just blew my mind playing it right in front of me. Just when you have a drum like this that resonates like crazy, it's just so strong and tunes really, really well. You can get a fat sound out of it, which is what I wanted. Military grade, fat sounding drum. Good for a lot of different stuff today. I'm just overwhelmed with this. I had mentioned that in a previous video, I was talking about, I did a video all about the snare strainer, the Swivel-matic. All right, which is this thing right there. Ta-da! It's a real one. I bought it brand new. Rogers has come back, and you can find some good stuff. I think their drums are not as great as they used to be, but anyway, they might be going on the up and up. Anyway, this one is like it was in the 70s. Excuse me, and it's awesome. I had said that it was virtually soundless. You can hear a little bit, right? And at the time I was like, this is amazing. You can't hear anything. Well, before I put it on the drum, you can hear a little bit actually, but then it occurred to me, wait a second, this strainer was one of the pioneers to do this kind of mechanism without any essentially moving parts. I mean, you see the handle, the lever moving, but there's nothing inside there. There's no bolts or anything moving around or springs or anything. There's no springs in this thing. It's just really, really well designed, and the first of its kind. So props to Rogers for doing that, and it still functions beautifully. It's got a nice reassuring position when it's locked in, which is not the case with all of them anyway. So I'm super happy with that. Even this part right here, the knob on top here is not some kind of like, it's a reissue, right? But it's not some kind of like flimsy knob where you feel the metal caving in under your fingers when you pinch it or turn it. Awesome. Awesome. I put on the other end, I put on the pearl butt plate right there. It's a nice bulky, not bulky, but serious thick gauge metal, chromed. It'll be there forever. It's so awesome. It looks well with the hardware too. Blends in perfectly. Looking at this, it took some time here because I put, well, the mirror thing is weird. I put 3 air holes here, or 3 air hole grommets, gaskets, metal ones. I was a little nervous to find them because we're talking like a 1975 drum. Am I going to be able to find the same ones? There used to be, right, this part right there was where the mounting system, a big chunky piece of metal goes in there, and then you have the suspension, the mounting arm that goes into this hole here. I was thinking, what can I do to cover this up, or should I fill it in and then put a new ply over it so you can't see it? and I decided, hey, you know what? I want to leave it as it is, and I'll just put I'll see if I can find the grommets, the metal air holes, which I did, which is like pork pie. But these ones I just found on Amazon. Took me a little while, especially for the big one. But it's a metal, solid metal um, air hole cover. You know, it's just awesome. It fits in perfectly. I didn't have to shave down the wood or change the dimensions of the air holes to get it in there. I'm just so happy with it. My son um, helped me put it in. So they're awesome. And what's really cool, actually, I noticed this before, but now a big drum, I can literally, like a bowling ball, put my finger in there and carry it with me. And I'm not worried about it falling or anything, as opposed to normally when big drums you can hold the strainer, but I'm not too keen to that idea. So this just is a cool little thing that just like a little cherry on top, being able to hold it like that. Plus it's on the top side, which I intentionally did. I could have put it on the bottom side, flipped the drum over. So that was thought about anyway. So super happy with those. Air holes are really, it was really important that I did that because you don't want any of the drum to be, what's the word? Not victim, but you don't want them to be exposed to the elements, the weather, humidity, sun, rain, water, and So it's good to do that to close off all the access that those elements can get, into the drum, into the plies, and slowly peel them up in humidity and stuff. I wanted to absolutely do that, and that's it. I managed to save the badge here, and it looks beautiful. I didn't rework the ink. You can see there that the U and the S is a little messed up. The U is almost gone, but it doesn't matter. The serial number is there. And this is under it's 781. So the 781st drum made by Rogers Big R Tom of this one. So I'm just like livid with this thing. This is awesome. I also put a nice glossy paint, over top of the badge to protect it even more, so the ink is not going to rub off, or I can't scratch off the R anymore or anything else. So that'll stay there. It's nice and shiny, and it's in that way I can also clean it and not have to worry about damaging the badge later on. Cleaned off all the hardware. The rims that I bought are Gibraltar rims, and I could have bought Pearl ones. They were pretty good too. And other ones. I didn't want to get the heavy gauge rims. I checked on the Superphonics, or no, Dynasonics, right? Right, I'm thinking that's right. Rogers Dynasonic. And the rims are not super gauge, heavy gauge rims, which nowadays a lot of drum companies are seducing drummers into getting heavy gauge stuff. Without telling them that, yeah, it's like a tank, but what about the sound? And when you get a heavy gauge rim on a drum, I used to have a Gretsch stop sign badge, and it had die-cast chrome rims. It choked the crap out of the drum, and it was also very heavy. But despite that, it choked the drum a lot, and I did not want to do that with this drum. When it's a deep drum. So everything has to be taken into consideration to allow the drum to resonate and to get that snare sound out as much as possible, more than the tom sound, because it has a deep drum like this. Its intuition is to be a tom. It was a tom, so you have to work with they all add up. The rims, the snare, the throw off, the lugs, the heads, the bearing edge, all that stuff adds up to how the drum is going to sound, if it's going to be a tomish sound or a snare sound. So I ended up getting Gibraltar's 2.3 millimeters, I believe. Pretty sure. That's what it looks like anyway. I'm pretty sure that's what Dynasonics chose too. Some of them might have chosen 1.75. They certainly were not any more than 2.3, I think. anyway, this turns out I'm super happy with it, unbelievable. And Gibraltar is really good, triple flanged, and the metal is again, it doesn't feel like it's bending in your hand like a beginner kit would. Gibraltar tuning tension rods, the bearing edge. Now, this was a serious thing for me. The bearing edge, right, is this part here where the snare bed, where it hangs and where it pushes down into the head. And it was on this drum. I did it a few times actually. I did it at least 3, maybe 4 times. I took down the bearing edge little by little, and it got to a point where I didn't want to go any further because I don't know if I can get this to show, but the bearing edge is so close. The shell, see if I can get it flat so you can see how close that is. So you can see, can you see the difference where the metal stops and the wood starts? There's maybe, I don't know, not a centimeter for sure, maybe half a centimeter maybe on both ends. So I was dangerously approaching that spot where either the cords that I was using, the cords, the vinyl cords or vinyl cords. It's not vinyl cords. It's what is that? Strainer cords. I forget what it's called. Anyway, I was using those or these plastic straps, and I opted for these plastic straps because I didn't want to shave down the bearing edge anymore in fear of the straps or the cords not touching the wood anymore, right? And these plastic straps, it literally is like less than a millimeter. So it's yet again, it's a little step that you choose to do that thing, and you gain the snare gets a little closer to the head. Everything, so the bearing edge, and then because those cords, they add a few millimeters distance off the head, and I found that I had to tighten it up too much, and the cords were pushing into the shell, and I didn't like it. And with the snare drum, a millimeter between the snare and the head makes all the difference. So again, I was, all of these things have to be taken into consideration to get the snare coming out of it and not the tom. I tried a regular snare strainer, like that, the typical classic one. I don't know how many, 14 strands or something. And I opted for this one, which I think is like 20 or 22 something. This one's called Fat Cat Strainer. And man, this is awesome because again, I needed a strainer that would dig into the head a little bit more than typical strainers. A typical strainer, it's just it comes down a little bit and then goes straight. So when you pull on it with the throw off, it basically, if this is the snare and I pull on it, it does this kind of thing. So you have a slight bow in the just naturally the strainer kind of will bow up just a little bit. You can't see it because the metal part right here, right there, you can't see it on the video, but the metal part on a typical strainer is flat. There's a little indentation, there's a little form that they've engineered into it so that the cords or the strap that you use doesn't make it go up the head a little more. I think I got a package. My wife's going to get it. But on top of that, so I have this Fat Cat strainer. Now, the cool thing about this one I learned is the metal is, I'm going to use my son's book here. The metal is like this mirror thing. Right? So the strainer, it comes up a little and then it comes down. And why is that important? Because actually when you pull on the strainer, it helps the bowing thing from happening on the strainer, and it pulls it down instead of something flat like this and then I can't do it properly with the bow, and having it bow up. And so that millimeter of a difference with the strainer it was like the cherry on top again for this thing. It made it perfect. So the strainer, I don't have to crank up the knob and the strainer, the throw off to get the snare to get really snug inside the head, which is just it worked out beautifully. The snare was about 20 some euros here. So Fat Cat strainer's awesome. I wanted to talk to you another thing about this. You can see Rogers was again one of the first companies that engineered the shell smaller than the head and the rim in the 70s, and you can see it there. You can see the space right there. You can see the color of the wall behind me showing through, and there it is. That's them making just the shell a few millimeters smaller than the standard shell. And now, you know, my Premier drums from the 90s, they capitalized on that idea, and they're even more, I think they're 5/8 smaller. That's just, I recall that was like 20 years ago. Anyway, so you can see it there all the way around. I can't get the mirror thing of this there you go. You see? So that's awesome. Resonates so the heads fit properly on the shell, obviously, but they float, quote unquote, and it makes it easier to tune because the head is not like compressed within the rim. It's just pushed over top of the shell, so you don't have to tune according to the rim being, you know, cramping it, which makes it a lot better. I can hear it now when I'm talking. The drum. There was another video. I think it was the second one. I was hitting the drum and it resonates. It reminded me of props to Terry out there talking about old vintage pasty cymbals and B8s, and how he was just freaking out about on Bonzolium channel. Props to you, Terry. How he was freaking out about the ring in old B8 pasty cymbals, and still today. And you couldn't tell it from the video, but you could. He was experiencing what I know to be true too. Is there's a special ring with 2002s and B8 pasty cymbals, 505, same thing. 404 is the same thing, where when you think the cymbal's over on a norm, where the sound of a cymbal is typically over, on those cymbals, the sound, there's still that continues on, that's present, and you can hear it as a drummer. You can hear that thing, and it adds into the mix. It's very mysterious. It just goes on forever. This thing, I felt that thing that he was feeling with this thing. When you can't do it here, but when you take off the strainer and you hit it, there's a ring that just goes on and on and on forever. It's like it does that. So I was like, I think in the video there's a moment where you see me listening to that and just kind of like, you know, mystified by it. I'm sure the video couldn't capture that sound, but when you're here listening to it, it does it. And I was like, that is going to be great. That's because of the shell. It's a vintage shell. That's because of the size of the shell. It's the Keller wood, and it's all dried now. It's I don't know how old this is now, more than 50 years old. And it just rang like crazy. So I was thinking, like, man, when I get the heads on this thing, it's gonna be so big. And it is. I went to the studio before I got the air holes filled in, before I got the air hole covers, you know, where they at there. Before they came in the mail, I took it out, and it was just awesome. It just like makes me, it just, you know, as a drummer, it's the kind of drum that just makes you laugh and makes you just go, holy crap, when you hit it, because it's so alive. So I don't know when I'm ever going to be able to do this. You get to use it. I hope I can get into a band and be able to do it. Otherwise, I'll just do a solo project and go to town with this thing. But anyway, it made me remember him a little bit with that. Looking at the tuning lugs, um, the only thing on this drum that has rubber gaskets, is the butt plug here, right there, the butt plug, right? And I remember when I got my Premier drums in the '90s, um, that was a big thing. Drum companies were trying to seduce drummers, get drums with the rubber gaskets. It's part of the professional line, so the shell will resonate and la 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 yada yada yada, right? Now, I don't think so at all. I am not endorsing that. I have them on my drums. They're nice. It's an aesthetical thing. I have them on my Premier drums, and they do add a nice visual look. But in my opinion, same thing with the huge rims. It chokes the sound. Rubber is a great anti-conductor of electricity. It's a great muffler of sound. So when you put those on the wood, and then you have the wood that resonates, and it hits the rubber, what do you think happens to the vibration? It stops. So nowadays, and that is the case, a lot of drums today now sound choked like crap. Like literally, it's almost criminal what they're doing to them. They're not resonating a lot, and you know what? That's probably because the engineers are also seducing everybody to get drums that are easily controllable and that's that. So the gaskets help control the sound, and you get this one, nice wave of a sound, and there's not a lot of resonance. Well, great, but when you're playing a drum, that resonance is what inspires you. It gets into your blood, it gets under your skin, it opens up your ears, it sensitizes it. It's like it increases your palate, your ear when you're listening to drums. So I'm utterly happy with the fact that there aren't any rubber gaskets, between the lugs. And in my opinion, it adds to the resonating quality of this drum. It's just amazing, amazing. I love it. Um, the shell came out awesome. I mean, you can see here. Um, I worked hours and hours and hours and hours. It was like, I think 2 months total with everything going on, just shaving it or sanding it down and water sanding and going back and sanding it down, and then using an electric sander and had spirals everywhere, and then circling them all out, and then it was crazy. And now when I look at it, I'm just like, that's it. I'm totally stoked. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Um, so that's it. I don't know. Is there anything else to say about this drum? I put some tape on it. Like my way of doing tape. And man, just off the wall drum. I wanted all of those things contributed. Snare, rim, the bearing edge. I didn't change the bearing edge of this part here. Kept it real nice. In fact, it has reinforcement rings. Oh, I put in new screws behind the lugs. I had extra new ones anyway. I put those in. Just like hands down, unbelievable. This drum is just sick. It is just sick. So here it is. I can't play it. If I were, I mean, I can play it, but if I played it here, you won't. It sounds a little loose, but you won't. It won't do it justice here. I'm gonna put it in. I'm working on an album, and I'm gonna try and record it for you like that. And that's it. I'm just so stoked about this thing. It's just so amazing. If you ever get a chance, this originally was not a snare drum, right? This was a tom. It was covered in red plastic, frightening to me to take off. I was like, what the hell is this going to be like? Oh my Lord. I looked out with taking it off with an iron one evening, like 12. I was looking at it like, I'm going to try it. So I did, took it off. I'm looking at these little, around the swivel nut, that's the little part here that holds in right there. That's the swivel nut. And there's a little ring that is around the swivel nut. If you see, in the video, you can just see a little line there. And that holds the swivel nut in place when you take the tension rod off. Otherwise, the swivel nut will fall inside. So all of those little pieces of metal were all good enough to put on, to keep on. So I'll see what happens with this. There's no cracks or anything in the shell. Man, I'm just like in love with it. I'm just so in love with it. Freaking in love with it. So there you go. Rogers Big R snare drum, military grade, with the original Swivel-matic clock face, I think they call it, clock face strainer. It's unbelievable. It also, I have a stand, it also, because of the height of this thing, the depth. Now when you play it, it's just right for my size. I don't like to sit too high up on the throne or too low, so it's just right. But I was a little worried about that. It turned out to be perfect. Man, I just looking at it, I just want to go crazy on it. Just, just so awesome. There's a little bit of pitting I see still, but that's okay. I might go back and re-chrome the pitting, re-chrome the lugs later on, but I don't need to. They're not moving anywhere. That's it. That's it. Just waiting to play. It's got such a big fat sound to it. Normally I'll be going back to work next week, and I think I will bring it. I'll probably have to get a bag for this. I can put it in my floor tom bag and kind of double up with the World Max and this one. Maybe. Actually, I tried that. I don't think it'll work. I have to figure it out. But anyway, I'll probably have to get a separate bag for this thing. So that's it. Seals it. Seals the circle of snare drums that I need in my life. Currently I'm working on an album, working on a few albums actually. I have a jazz one I'm working on, and I'm working on a surprise. I'm not going to say it. A surprise album, very unlike me, and it'll be probably, I'm anticipating a year's worth of work with that album, but anyway, I don't want to give it away right now. It's going to be pretty cool. And that's it. That's it. All right. So, cheers to everybody. Thanks for following me and following this progress. I love drums. I don't know. I don't have any ideas of new drums that I want to. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Never stops. Hold on. So this is something I'm going to probably do one of my next projects. I have my old rims, bass drum rims from my Remo. From my Premier Janista kit. And they were green, right? These are, you can see I'm starting to shave, I'm working on it, shaving off the green. Premier had like unbelievably like super thick, glossy lacquer on top of their stain here, on top of the paint, and it's just a headache to get off. So I'm doing it, and right now on my kit, I bought 20-inch solid wood rims to put on my kit now, so that's what I have. But I'd like to put these back on. The rims, they're just better than the ones that I have, but I have to take all the green off, and then I have to sand it down and stain it and make it match the drums that I have now. So that will probably be the next, working drum video that I'll post up This one, and I got to get the other one. I think it's downstairs in my cave. So that's it. Working on this thing. You can see, you know. That's it. Other than that, I got lessons. The bulk of my lessons are coming back next week. So I'll probably be less available to do these things. I will still be doing the chop out series. I haven't done those in a little while. I'll be doing those again, and certainly in the summertime. And that's it. That's it. So thanks again for following, checking out this stuff. I hope it was informative and fun for you, as it was for me. And more soon. Happy drumming.